So we got a new Filipino zombie film today on Netflix that runs almost 2.5 hours long. So that's immediately going to scare off a good amount of people with that runtime alone. A lot of horror fans nowadays like to keep their horror to a light 80, 90 brisk minutes. So 2 hours and like 22 minutes is going to be pushing it for a lot of people, especially with a foreign film as well. This one does have English dubs on it. Typically, when it comes to like Indonesian, Filipino, Indian horror on Netflix, a lot of the times there is no dub option. It's always just the subs, which I'm not here to say which one you should or should not watch. Sometimes I prefer dubs. Mostly I do subs. But with this one I did watch the dub because it was the default option and it felt fine to me, so I just stuck with it. Anyway, so this is about a family that is trying to survive the zombie apocalypse. Now, this is a smaller scale zombie film for sure. We don't see a lot of zombies. And this is a much slower paced film. I'm going to tell you up front, this is a family drama. And I know that, a lot of people who are into this zombie subgenre just want to see like hordes of zombies and lots of gore and kills. No, you're not getting that here at all. This is about a man and a woman who have a couple kids together, and there is all of this tension that has been brewing between them before the zombie outbreak even happened. There was plenty of strife. There was plenty of drama going on before anything even happened. So them having to hold things together when they're not getting along is pretty much the whole point of the film. And so you really have to buy into that stuff. Now, I did quite like the movie. Does it need to be 2.5 hours long? No. You could definitely do this movie in an hour and a half. I don't see any reason outside of like pacing. It's a very like slow paced film purposely. And I feel like you can tell the exact same story in 50 minutes less for sure. And I'm not somebody who is against long films. In fact, I defend them if they deserve defending, in my opinion, right? Like, I've seen people posting like, no horror movie should be over 90 minutes. Bullshit. That's just such a blanket statement that doesn't take into account how many wonderful films in the horror genre that people love and have loved forever are over an hour and a half long. Like, you're completely dismissing tons of classic horror movies that are over 90 minutes that you yourself probably love. So that's just a silly thing. Like, are there movies that don't justify their runtime and are too long? Absolutely. Are there movies that are too quick and should have added more runtime to flesh things out? Yeah. So just having these kind of like very narrow-minded ideas of like shoehorning a film into a very specific runtime, depending on its genre, is just fucking silly to me. Because you have like the director's cut of Dr. Sleep or Midsommar, and those are both 3 hours long, and I wouldn't cut a single second of either of those. So anyway, moving on from that, one thing I did like about the movie is the portrayal of the zombies. I think the zombies in this are unique. Now, do we get much when it comes to the lore or the backstory to things? No. That's really just kind of left up to us to figure out with very little information, which I'm fine with. But I did like what we got of the zombies. I thought that they were menacing. I thought that they were somewhat unique. They have a fairly similar look to what you're used to, but with minor variations that set them apart to enough. But there is something that they have going for them that most zombie movies do not. And I'll let you experience that for if you do watch it. But I like it because it is something that I personally prefer And it's something I was putting into scripts of zombie movies that I've written or zombie stories that I've been working on. So I do appreciate that inclusion here of an attribute we're not used to typically seeing in zombie movies. But regardless, putting that aside for the moment, the relationship dynamic between the family is engaging, but it does feel fairly repetitive. And I can see people getting frustrated with the characters to a degree, but I think that's the point, especially with the dad character. And it's like, really, is this the time to do it? But that's kind of the point, right? And with zombie movies, we all know that they typically play out like the real enemies, the real monsters are humans, right? That's the very typical classic trope of zombie movies, and this one's no exception in that regard. As far as the dad character goes, he's the one that you're going to be the most frustrated and angry with, and he's an interesting character for sure, and this definitely goes into some places where you're like, oh damn. So if you don't mind slower burn horror films, it kind of has a similar feel to the French zombie film Ravenous, from few years back, but it doesn't have that much action to it. There is a couple action sequences, but they're few and far between. So don't expect a whole bunch of action here. But yeah, I quite liked it. I really wish they could have cut the runtime down to make this move quicker, because I don't know, it lingers and is repetitive too much, and I think that hurts the film. Definitely noticed that a lot of foreign cinema, whether it's Indian or Indonesian or in this case Filipino, they really like to pad their runtimes. I don't know why they do that, but they're always 2+ hours, 90% of the time. And I just don't think the story, justifies it. Like, I'll sit through a 5-hour film if the story justifies it, right? Like Kill Bill, Quentin Tarantino wanted to release that as like a 4.5-hour film or whatever. And I would have sat through that no problem, no question, because I'm so into that story. I feel like that story is, 4.5, 5 hours long from everything that he wants to do and everything he tells. He really justifies that time. But with this, there's not enough going on in here to justify that runtime. But there is a good amount going on within the film to dissect and to get into while it's happening. So anyway, I don't want to become repetitive and make this video longer than it needs to be. So I'll take my own advice and I'll cut it here. But yeah, it's good. It's on Netflix if you want to check it out. And I'll see you in the comments.